Welcome to Diane and her Lousy Report. This is about how to tell someone their work isn't good enough and seek cooperation from them rather than simply lay down the law. It's a video in my series about how to master tough conversations and have less stress and better outcomes. And it's with me, Mark McPherson. So I took over a new team. And Diane was one of the coordinators of the various groups. There were some groups, and Diane was one of the coordinators. And each coordinator had to produce a monthly report. And my job was to review it and then pass it on to senior management. And because I was new, it was the first monthly report I'd seen from any of the coordinators of any of the groups. But boy, oh boy, the problem was this report was not well written at all. The moment it landed on my desk, my stomach sort of tightened. It was not well written. It was missing crucial details. It was incomplete. There were vague sentences. There was no clear picture of where projects were even up to. I could not send this on to senior management, and it had to be fixed, which meant I had to speak to Diane. Now, this was a job for the REAL method, R-E-A-L method of mastering tough conversations. I knew that delaying this conversation was not smart. You've been there. You know what I'm talking about. You know you've got to have the conversation. You wish you didn't have to, but you do. So avoiding this conversation was going to cost me time and credibility and a bit of trust. Now, my story is about Diane and her lousy report. I want you to think of your tough conversations. You have your own situation. So if it's not about the conversations you had, then the conversations your colleagues or the team that you look after have to have. I call these real life scenarios. They're from your real life. They're your scenarios, your situations, not mine. I want you to go away with information you can use for your particular situation and your conversations that you need to have. So listen to my example of how I spoke to Diane and the strategies that I used, but apply it to your own tough conversations. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? So what is the real method of tough conversations? Well, of mastering tough conversations? Well, those of you who have worked with me before most certainly have heard it, but I think it's important to have a quick review. REAL, reveal answers, establish words, amplify the impact, and lift skills. So the reveal answers, well, there's 4 critical questions that need to be answered. Establish words, there's 5 personal conversation formulas, a bit more to it than that, of course, but I'm just giving a summary here. Under amplify impact, it's great to have the words, but how do you deliver those words? What do you do with your hands, your whole body, your face? Do you lean in or do you lean back? How do you use your voice in different ways to amplify the impact? And of course, you need to get good. And the way to do that is lifting skills through agent provocateur role plays. That's agent provocateur role plays. Advanced behaviour rehearsal techniques which simulate the real world environment in which you work. There's no sense getting into role play groups where you chat about some script that you have to read out. That can be fun, it can be easy, it can even be entertaining, but it's not as much help. So this is a layering effect, that revealing the answers, establishing words, amplifying the impact, and lifting your skills. So let me make it clear, this method did just come from nowhere. It came from years of trial and error. It came from a lot of hard work, and it came from a lot of hard work with all sorts of people in all sorts of situations, dealing with all sorts of issues. And I made mistakes, there's no doubt about that, but what I've eventually got here is I've put this together for you so you have a complete system that you can use. And it's hard work that I did, but you don't have to do it. So let's have a quick look at reveal answers to these questions. The first one was what happened and what's the issue? Now, If you haven't already heard me talk about this, I'd be surprised, but here goes. Only use the facts. We're talking about what the camera saw, not your intuition, the magic crystal ball. Couldn't think of the word. The crystal ball. It's not about that. Only use facts. The word lousy, which I put in the title of this video, is not a fact. It's my opinion. It's a description that I've decided to use. It's my subjective view and feelings about her report. It's to our advantage to stay away from anything that's subjective. Stay away from feelings and interpretations and conjecture. It's to our advantage to stick with what I call what the camera saw and just leave it at that. What do you want the person to do? Now, I wanted Diane to redo her report and make sure every report from now on was of the standard required. But here's something I have learned over the years. Be a little bit flexible. Sometimes during a tough conversation, things come up, new information comes to light, and you might want to change it. So I think just be flexible. It's okay during a conversation to change what you want the person to do. Just make sure you're on solid ground and you're very clear about why you're changing your mind, and not just because they're intimidating you or you're tired or whatever it happens to be. Be clear about what you want them to do, and make sure the other person is clear about what you want them to do. There's a hierarchy of outcomes here. It's you might want them to be polite and listen. That's great. Of course you do. That helps the conversation run smoothly. You might want them to understand what you're saying and even agree with it. And that's great. That would be good. And that makes you feel good and can make others feel good as well. But just remember this. You are having a tough conversation because you want the person to do something specific. It's not just to get something off your chest and tell them how you feel or whatever. It's you want them to do something specific. So again, think about your real life scenario. Think about the conversation you and your team need to have. Can you see how what we've covered so far is already of benefit to you, and you can apply it to your situation? What do you want the person to actually do? Refrain from using certain language at a staff meeting. Stop taking over conversations and talking over other people. Think about exactly what you want them to do. That's important. Don't just make it, I want them to do better. So the third question is, which of the 5 types of tough conversations will you be having? For your convenience, I've put the tough conversations into 5 types, 5 groups. So which type of tough conversation will you be actually having? Now, I've made what I call a matrix, the tough conversations matrix. I'm not going to fill it all in here for you, but there's 5 types of tough conversations. There's one about cooperation, conduct, another one about compassion, confession, and as I call them, challenge. Now, I really wanted to make this conversation with Diane a cooperation conversation. I wanted to invite collaboration. I wanted to invite her to simply produce better reports. But I've always known it's smart to prepare for a conduct conversation as well, where it's sometimes needed. That's where you sort of up the ante a little bit. So I prepared for both. I had a conversation for cooperation. It'd be assertive, but I'd be seeking cooperation and assistance, information from Diane. But I had one up my sleeve for contact, which was a little firmer and more authoritative. I wanted to help Diane improve. That's what I wanted. I want to support her growth. That's my job as a manager, as a team leader. So I didn't know her well yet, so I also wanted to tread a little bit carefully. The next question of these reveal answers to these 4 critical questions. The next question is, why you? In this case, it's quite straightforward. I'm the manager. I'm the team leader. It's my job to make sure that these reports were satisfactory, and hers was not. So it's simple. But in other cases, in your situation, think about it. Why do you or your team want to, or someone you know, yourself, want to have these tough conversations? Why do you want to have one? Now, once I've answered those questions, and as I said, it might seem daunting having REAL. Oh, there's so much to learn. No, it's not. Bang. Once you've got those questions down pat, you've done them a few times, it's really simple. You'll know exactly what you want the person to do. And if you're not clear about what you want the person to do, maybe you shouldn't be having the conversation. So 5 personal conversation formulas. I've written one formula. They're acronyms. Well, not quite in some cases. They're what we often call an initialism. They don't actually make a word. But for cooperation, F.E.A.C is the formula. And just back to that, the cooperation for conduct, I'm not going to talk about the formula for conduct today. That's just too much for one video. But let's look at cooperation. I wanted Diane to do better, but I also wanted something from her. I wanted cooperation. I didn't want to simply just lay down the law. You've done wrong. This is what you need to do. Do it or else. So, cooperation. Let's look at what F.E.A.C is all about. F, it stands for facts. The facts and the facts only. E stands for explain. Explain what the problem is. What is the issue? What has been the decision? Whatever it happens to be. You need to explain to the person what it is. Do not just simply expect, oh, they'll get it. It's common sense. No, be clear, at least in your own mind. A stands for ask a question or ask for something. You might, when you want cooperation, you need to ask them a question or ask them for something. Don't expect that things that just happen magically. I was very clear about what I wanted Diane to do. But if asking a question or asking for information wasn't going to get what I was after, I was ready to move straight on to C for confirm, that I would then make it clear what I wanted and what I expected from her. But confirm could be used like that, but confirm could be after you've asked a question, you've had a discussion, could be just confirming the information you've been giving and where to from here. So lots of questions you could ask. This is up to you. Think about your own tough conversation here now. What is it you might need to ask this person? Is there something I need to know? That's been a very good one that I've used many times, and it's people are generally forthcoming. Is there something you'd like to tell me? What will you do to fix this? What will you do to make our relationship better? What will you do to make sure that you are cooperating with other team members or whatever it happens to be? Is there something you'd like to ask? Do you have the resources you need? I have been guilty of getting someone to do work and realise they didn't have the resources, and that could include their own skills. Give me 3 ideas about it. I'd like 3 ideas about, will you now do this? Will you now support me in my desire to have a promotion or whatever it happens to be? But there's this F.E.A.C. there's a lot to it. We're moving pretty quickly through it. Starting well matters, really important here. There's basic manners involved in this. At the beginning of a tough conversation is really everything. Those first 30 seconds or so set the emotional temperature for the entire discussion. If you rush, you sound cold, or you open too abruptly, or you use your voice in a certain way, people can tense up. They can fold their arms, they brace themselves, they just shut down before you've even begun. If you want to ask people things and get that cooperation, you need to make this a supportive environment. When Diane, this is some time ago now, so from my memory, Diane arrived at my office at 2 p.m. as planned. I stood, in this case, you don't always have to, I smiled, I thanked her for being on time, why wouldn't you? And invited her to sit down. I made the room feel calm and respectful. And not confrontational in any sort of way. That simple beginning lowered the tension instantly. I mean, she doesn't know me, didn't know me at the time, how I might react. I didn't really know her. She looked, however, tired. She looks beat in some regards, but at least the conversation had a good start, I thought. This starting really matters more than most people, I think, realise. It's very hard sometimes to pick up a conversation when you've not started well. Now, given Diane's demeanour, the tension. She seemed tense. She seemed exhausted. She seemed beat. I think my cooperation script of F.E.A.C was going to be the right one. But if I didn't get the result I needed, I was quite ready to shift gears, I can assure you. So I started with the facts. I pointed out what was missing from the report, the gaps, but not harshly. I just simply pointed it out. The information senior management required but was missing. I didn't mention things like spelling or grammar. I think sometimes you can go too far with these things. Spelling and grammar, I'm sure, was going to be fixed up throughout the other process. My goal wasn't to make her feel bad. It was actually to get the result I was really after. That's what you should be aiming for. I explained why this was a problem, and pretty calmly, why accuracy mattered, why completeness was important, and why I couldn't pass it on to senior management in its current state. It'd make me look bad, make her look bad, make all of us look bad. Now, Diane really made no reaction whatsoever. She sort of just looked at me. She didn't speak. And then that's when I remember this so clearly now. Her eyes sort of glistened over a little bit, and I thought, oh my God, she's going to cry. That wasn't my intention. That wasn't the point of this. My point is to get her to do better, help her do better. So I felt something was going on, something bigger perhaps than the report. Now, it's important here to do what I call cut the blah. At this point in tough conversations, it can be very easy for people to fall into what I call the blah, all the unnecessary chit-chat, softening, apologising. Oh, I don't mean you failed this. I'm sorry. And you sort of ramble on, and it just a whole pile of extra blah. That's understandable. I get it. Tough conversations make us a bit nervous when things happen, when unexpected things happen, and we can waffle. The problem with the blah is it takes you away from your message. You've got a message and you're going off with the blah over here, and it can make the other person confused and even embarrassed. So I just stuck to clarity, no waffle, just no emotional padding, just simply the purpose of what I want to talk about. So that's when I asked her the question. I actually asked her this question. It was the moment of truth for me. And it's a moment you move from feedback to some real insights sometimes. So I just turned a report upside down. It's done, right? She got the point. I'm sure she got the point. So I asked her a question. My voice softened. I'm talking at you fairly quickly now, but when you're having these tough conversations, you really need to know how to use your voice. So my voice softened a little bit, and I leaned back slightly, not back like this, just lean back, because leaning in like that can be intimidating. And I just asked her a question. I said, is there something you'd like me to know? Now, I knew this had been a hard time for this whole team the last 12 months for a whole pile of issues. So I had a job to do, however. I didn't want to back away from it, but I was also sensitive to some of their problems. Now, I asked her, is there something you'd like to know? Think about your tough conversation. What's the question you might need to ask? If you know the person really well, you might say, like, oh, is there something you want to get off your chest? See, it's quite different. So that's why your voice, the language, what words you use really does make a difference. So you need to make it a psychologically safe environment for people to be able to tell you what you've asked. You have asked somebody something. You can't have it both ways. You've asked them a question. They might actually tell you something you don't want to hear. Hopefully they will do it politely, because if they don't, then that's another issue entirely. Now, Diane's answer for this knocked me for six, really. She took a breath, and I thought, is she ever going to speak? She took another breath, and I can't remember exactly what she said, but it's along these lines. I'll fix the report. And then she said, I'm sorry. The head lowered. She said, I'm sorry. And then her voice started to break. And once again, I thought, oh, God, she's going to cry. Oh. She said, No one this is now paraphrasing. No one likes the project. It was never properly thought through. I don't think it's even needed. Nothing changes around here no matter what happens. I don't like it here anymore. And just like that, the real issue here surfaced. The report wasn't the problem so much, the project was. And I would never have found this out if I didn't ask that question. Underneath, there was frustration, and she was just beat, I think. Who wants to work on a project you don't think is smart? So that's what ask does. That A for ask actually does. It reveals what's really going on. That's if you mean it. You've got to be sincere with this. So at that stage, I decided that she was distressed. So I decided to cut this conversation a bit quickly than normally would. There's no sense going any further. But it's not before I confirmed something. First, the report was not satisfactory and needed to be fixed, but there was a way of saying that so it wasn't hard-hitting. I thanked her for her honesty, why wouldn't I? And her sincerity about speaking up. I knew it was a hard thing to do. No one had ever told me what Diane told me, but I had to check out too whether it was actually accurate or not. I did tell her that I would look at this project very closely, and I was going to have another meeting with her, not next week, but it was actually the following day I wanted to speak to her. So I would do my homework. That was my confirmation as well. And we ended the meeting, but I knew it wasn't over, that's for sure. See, asking matters. Asking isn't some sort of trick. It's not some sort of magic panacea to anything or some trick, but it can get to the truth, and it's an important question. And with Diane, I got immediate improvement. She actually redid the report in that 24 hours. So she actually did that at home. I didn't expect her, didn't want her to do it at home, but she did it. Gave me a bit of what I call some insight into what was really going on. It also developed trust. Rather than just me telling, I was actually asking her for her opinion. I don't know if that had been asked of her before. But I got a bigger opportunity here, which was to examine projects and to make sure that they're on the right track. And look, if projects didn't have a good rationale, then maybe they need to be given the bullet sometimes. So look, F.E.A.C did not just fix a report here, it opened a window for me into what was really, really going on. So that's the formula for getting cooperation. Doesn't mean you can't change or do other things in the middle of it. It's powerful, but it's not always enough. You need to have other things up your sleeve. Now, having a formula is important because you know what to say in advance. You know what order to say things in. If you go off track, you can get back onto the right path. Gives you a bit of clarity, and you can tailor it. So what you do with a personal conversation formula, make it your own. Once again, think of the conversations you need to have. Apply it to what your conversation is. You know what they are. You tailor it to fit your own way of your own situation. You personalize it. The way I say things is not the way you say things. Formal to informal. As I said, sometimes you can use colloquialisms, but that's up to you. You've got to adapt it to your situation. The full versions to your abbreviated versions, and that's what I call then your personal conversation script. Make it your own. So this has been pretty quick, but you've seen how I used the F.E.A.C formula with Diane to get at the truth. It doesn't mean later, if things don't improve, I can't use formulas to deal with conduct, behaviour, performance. So 4 critical questions, had a look at those. We didn't have a look at all of those because that wasn't the intent. We looked at 1. When people work with me, they get more than just the words. They get to look at the 8 vocal skills that you need to use. A number of things in there from power to pause to clarity to continuity to cadence. There's quite a bit to it, and 11 visual communication skills. Yeah, simple things, well, maybe not so simple in some cases. Where do you want the person to sit, on your right-hand side or your left-hand side or opposite? Does it make a difference? Well, in some cases it can. This is the icing on the cake. And you really need to practice these so you get good at it, and real life rehearsals with its smaller part, agent provocateur role plays, gives you the opportunity to practice in an environment that closely simulates your real world. So every time you have a tough conversation, you don't have to do everything. This because you just get good at, but this is my way of helping you master tough conversations. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? This is a layering effect. You improve and get better all the time. Can you see how this would help you? Or can you see how this would help your teams that you manage and your staff and colleagues? Now, this is how I support you. I produce all sorts of things that people need in different situations. Quick help. Sometimes people just say, mate, I've got this conversation tomorrow. Can you help me? Sometimes I do pre-recorded material for people. I run crash courses, as I call them. Presentations, I deliver those. Workshops, complete workshops, half a day, full day, spread over a period of time. And of course, coaching for individuals and small groups. Now, if you need help with these, you've got your own tough conversations, you're thinking about how to apply this, you've got questions about what if they say this, what if they do it, what if they don't answer, all sorts of things. There's a lot you can think about here, and if you'd like to discuss some of those with me, my job is not to sell to you one of those programs. My job is to help you decide if I've got something for you, if I'm right for you. So look, you can contact me and make an appointment if you like, my online calendar. That's one way of doing it. Or you can always send me a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, Mark, I was looking at this, I was looking at that, I've got this conversation next week, or I'm responsible for, I'm a HR person, a people and culture person, I need to help people. So just have a quick chat and let's see if I can work out something special for you and we're a good fit. So look, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, look after yourself, look after your friends and family, and I do hope to speak to you soon, and all the very best with your tough conversations. If you've got any issues, please don't hesitate to contact me.